I never thought I'd be standing on Tiffany's porch at midnight, trying to figure out if I should knock or just walk away. My name's Tony, 23, single, auto detailer by trade. I live about 20 minutes outside Columbus, Ohio, in a modest place with more space in the garage than the kitchen. Life's been quiet, predictable, a mix of long hours polishing cars and unwinding with music that no one else seems to like. I wasn't looking for anything to change that night. Then Zach called. Zach and I hadn't talked in months. He'd moved to Nashville for work and music or something in between, but we still had that leftover loyalty from teenage years spent side by side. So when his name lit up my screen close to midnight, I knew it wasn't casual. Tony, man, he said, voice tight. I've been trying to call my mom all day. She's not answering. She never does that. Can you check on her? Please? Tiffany. His mom. I hadn't seen her in a couple years, but even back then, she always had this calm presence. The kind of woman who made you feel like your chaos didn't touch her. A strong one. Which made Zach's panic feel heavier. I grabbed my keys without much thought, tossed on a hoodie, and headed out. Streets were quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your tires sound loud on the pavement. My mind ran faster than the car. Was she sick? Hurt? Or just done? When I pulled up to her house, the porch light was on. But no movement inside. No flicker of a TV. No shadows. Just stillness, and that eerie kind of emptiness that doesn't make noise but feels like it should. I hesitated by the car, then crossed the walkway. The old wooden steps creaked under my feet, same as they used to when we'd sneak in after curfew. I half expected the door to swing open, for her to smile and wave it all off. But nothing. Then I saw her. She was sitting on the porch swing. Pajamas, no shoes, arms folded tight like she was holding herself together. Her eyes were red, like the kind of red you get after the tears stop but the pain doesn't. Her hands trembled slightly, not enough to look weak, just enough to look real. I didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, caught between awkwardness and concern. She looked up slowly, then offered a small, tired smile. Tony, she said, barely above a whisper. Zach's worried about you, I replied, stepping closer. He's been calling. She nodded, eyes dropping to the porch floor. Phone's inside. I just couldn't. I didn't push. Didn't ask why. Didn't ask how long she'd been out here. I just stood there, the night pressing in on both of us. My husband left, she said suddenly, voice cracking like dry wood. Just packed his things and left. Said he found someone younger. Prettier. The swing creaked as she shifted slightly, and I saw her eyes dart toward the yard like she was watching for headlights that weren't coming back. I didn't know where else to sit, she added. The house feels like it belongs to someone else now. I lowered myself onto the porch railing, not too close. Letting her have space. Letting the silence do some of the work. She looked at me again, really looked, and her eyes weren't just red now, they were searching. Like she was reaching out without moving. Then she said it. Quiet, shaky, like it surprised even her. Take me anywhere. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't need to. It wasn't about escape, not really. It was about not drowning where she was. Okay, I said. And just like that, we left the porch light behind. She didn't pack anything. No bag, no phone, no jacket. Just got in the passenger seat like we were going on a late-night burger run, not driving away from the ruins of her marriage. I didn't say a word about it. Didn't ask where she wanted to go. Didn't try to fill the silence. We pulled away slow, the tires crunching gravel, the porch light growing smaller behind us until it disappeared in the rearview mirror. Her window was half down, hair barely moving in the breeze. She looked out like the world was muted, like everything had turned grayscale except for the thoughts crowding her head. I headed toward Hoover Reservoir, not because it meant something, but because it didn't. It was close enough to feel spontaneous, far enough to feel like we'd left something behind. I remembered Zach once telling me that his mom liked the water, that she used to go sit there when she needed space. Maybe that was still true. Maybe it didn't matter. We pulled into the overlook area, just a couple empty benches, dim streetlight at the edge of the lot, and that huge stretch of black water absorbing the moon. I parked, left the engine off, and we sat in silence for a while, watching the kind of quiet that doesn't ask for commentary. She finally spoke. "You brought me here once." I glanced over. Her face was turned toward the water, but her voice wasn't distant, it was present, like she'd pulled that memory from a dusty shelf and was holding it again. "Years ago," she added, "after one of our first big fights. Zach was at a sleepover, and you knocked on the door because you had something for him, I think. I was crying. You asked if I needed anything. I said no. And you said people who say no usually do." I remembered that. I was maybe 17. I didn't even have my own car yet. I'd borrowed my dad's old truck that week. I had no idea what I was doing, but I remember offering her a ride. And I remember how quiet she was, even back then. "He promised things would be different after that night," she said. "Told me he'd try harder. That he'd see me again." I didn't have the right words for that, so I didn't pretend to. I just nodded slowly. She leaned back in the seat, head against the rest, hands still folded in her lap. "I feel like a fool. Like I kept holding on to this version of us that only existed in my head." He didn't even flinch, Tony. No hesitation. Just packed. Said it like it was a favor to me. Her voice cracked at the end, and I saw her wipe at her cheek without ceremony, like she was tired of caring how it looked. "You mattered," I said quietly. Not to cheer her up. Not to fix anything. Just because it was true. "Still do." She looked at me for the first time since the car started. Really looked. And for a second I felt like time blurred. The woman beside me wasn't just Zach's mom anymore. She wasn't just a name I used to hear when we played Xbox in the basement. She was someone who had been carrying more than she ever let show. "Thank you," she whispered. We sat there a while longer. The water didn't say anything, didn't need to. Eventually I offered. "You hungry?" She shook her head no, then paused. "Maybe. I don't know. I can't tell if I want a burger or if I just want to feel normal." I smiled. "I can work with that." I pulled out my phone, found a 24-hour diner a few miles down the road. But before I could say anything, she touched my arm lightly, not even a full grasp, just fingertips. "I don't want to go home tonight," she said. "I can't sit in that bed." "Not yet." "Okay," I said again. "We'll find somewhere. No pressure. No expectations. Just space to breathe." I didn't overthink it. I just started driving again. She closed her eyes, not asleep, just resting like her brain needed a moment to stop spinning. And for the first time since Zach called, I didn't feel like I was reacting to a problem. I felt like I was doing exactly what needed to be done. The lakeside and sat off a quiet stretch of road a few miles out from the reservoir, one of those low-rise, old but clean places with a flickering vacancy sign and zero pretense. I pulled in without asking if she was sure. She'd already made her decision back in the car. Inside, the guy behind the counter didn't even look up from his tiny TV. I asked for a room with 2 beds. No questions. Just slid my ID across, signed a receipt, got a keycard that still had a strip instead of a chip. Back at the car, she was still sitting quiet. When I opened the door, she stirred like she'd come up for air. No dramatics, no heavy sighs, just stood up, pulled the sleeves of her sweatshirt over her hands, and followed me inside. The room smelled like fabric softener and something fried. Not bad, just familiar. 2 double beds, stiff quilts with triangle patterns, a table in the corner with a menu for a pizza place that promised delivery till 3 a.m. I turned on the lamp near the window and didn't bother with the overhead light. It felt like the kind of night that needed soft things. She sat on the edge of the bed closest to the window, hands in her lap, scanning the room like it might vanish. I ordered food, Just something basic, a burger and fries for her, whatever the special was for me. She didn't ask what I got. I didn't expect her to. When the food arrived, I passed her the bag. She picked at the burger, took a couple bites, then set it aside. "My head's too loud," she murmured. I nodded. "It's okay. Just eat what you can." She pulled her legs up onto the bed and sat cross-legged, hoodie sleeves down over her hands again. "Do you ever think," she asked suddenly, "that you'll be one thing your whole life, and then something shifts and you don't even recognize yourself?" "All the time," I said. "Usually around 3 in the morning." That got a small smile. She leaned back into the pillows like it felt safe enough, at least for now. I took the other bed clothes on, shoes off, didn't want her thinking for a second this was anything but what it was. I wasn't here to take advantage. I was just here. Holding space. That's all. The rain started maybe an hour later. Not a storm, just a steady tap against the window that filled the silence between us. At one point, she turned toward me in the dark and said, "Thanks for not leaving." I didn't answer out loud. Just gave a soft sound. The kind people make when they don't want to break the calm. Eventually, we both fell asleep, not the deep kind, but that edge of dream sleep where you float more than rest. In the morning, the rain was still there, just lighter. I sat up first, rubbed my face, then looked over. She was already awake, wrapped in the quilt, eyes open like she'd been waiting for the light to show up. There was a coffee pot in the corner. I made 2 cups, even though the stuff tasted like cardboard. She took hers with 2 sugars, no cream. I guessed right. She smirked at that. "You snore," she said, sipping. I raised an eyebrow. "Lie." I breathed enthusiastically. That got a real laugh. It wasn't loud, but it was whole. She set her coffee down, crossed her legs under her again like she'd started resetting herself. The hurt was still there, sure, but it wasn't frantic anymore. Just something quiet and heavy. "What now?" I asked. She looked out the window for a long second. "I don't know. But I don't want to go home yet." I nodded once. "Let's just drive." No plan. No destination. Just forward. We didn't rush. Checkout wasn't until noon, and neither of us had anything to race back to. She moved slower that morning, but it wasn't the same kind of heaviness as the night before. It was like she was trying to figure out how to exist again, what to do with her hands, how to wear her face when no one was watching. I stopped at a gas station a few miles south of the inn. While I filled up, she went inside. Came back with 2 coffees, hers with the 2 sugars again, mine black, and a bag of trail mix. Not the fancy kind, just the standard store brand blend. But it wasn't about the food. It was the first moment she made a choice for both of us. Like she'd stepped out of the fog, even just a little. We didn't say where we were going. Just pointed south and let the road do the rest. I rolled the windows down. The air was cool enough to keep us awake but soft enough to be kind. Her hair blew wild in the wind, and I saw the first real smile form on her face. Not a polite one, not the automatic kind people give at the grocery store. This one came up slow, like it was remembering how. "Feels good to not know where we're going," she said. "Yeah," I nodded. "Feels overdue." She turned toward me a little. "I've lived my whole life making sure everyone else knew what came next. What dinner was. What school Zach should go to. What vacation dates worked around his work schedule. It's strange to not have to plan for anyone else." "You're allowed to float a little," I said. "Doesn't mean you're lost." At some point, a green road sign flashed, Hocking Hills. I hadn't been there in years, but something about it felt right. Forests, trails, cliffs, space. Not flashy. Just a way. I flicked the turn signal without asking, and she didn't question it. Just leaned her head back and closed her eyes again. The road narrowed as we got closer. Dense trees on both sides. Wet leaves and fog hugging the asphalt. It smelled like damp earth and pine, the kind of smell that settles you without asking. We parked near one of the trails. I grabbed the coffees, the trail mix, and a spare hoodie from the back seat in case she needed it. She didn't. Just zipped up her sweatshirt and followed me like it wasn't her first time doing this. The trail was soft from the rain, but not muddy. We didn't talk much, and we didn't have to. We passed a few people, couples, hikers, a dad with a kid on his shoulders, but mostly it was just the two of us and the sound of our steps and the birds overhead. At a clearing, the trees broke into a small overlook. The valley stretched below like it had been waiting for someone to look at it. She walked to the edge, hands in her pockets, wind tugging at the hem of her sweatshirt. "I haven't felt like myself in years," she said, not turning around. "Not even sure I know who that is anymore." I stayed behind her a few feet, sat on a wooden bench nearby. "Maybe you don't have to know yet." She turned and joined me on the bench. The wood was damp, but neither of us cared. She sat close, not touching, but near enough that I could feel the heat from her arm. "I used to be funny," she said. "Did you know that? I used to be the one at the party making people laugh. Not the mom, not the wife. Just me. Maybe she's still in there," I said. "Under all the expectations." She looked down at her hands. He didn't see me anymore. Not for a long time. It was like I disappeared and became a list of tasks. Groceries. Dry cleaning. Dinner. Polite smiles at work parties. I didn't have advice. Just sat with it. Sometimes that's all someone needs, to not be alone with what's heavy. "You're easy to be around," she said suddenly. I shrugged. "I don't try too hard. That helps." That got a quiet chuckle. She leaned back on the bench and exhaled slow, like her breath had been stuck in her chest for days. We stayed there for a long time, not figuring anything out. Just letting the woods hold the weight for a while. We didn't drive home that evening. After the hike, after that long bench silence full of things we didn't rush to name, it just didn't feel right to return to anything familiar. I think we both knew it before either of us said it. There was a small lodge nearby, one of those rustic places tucked into the woods, with pinewood walls, quilts on the beds, and a front desk that still used physical keys. It wasn't fancy, but it felt like it knew how to be quiet, and that was enough. We checked in without much conversation. The woman behind the counter looked from me to Tiffany and smiled, like she'd seen this story before but wasn't about to comment on it. She handed over the key and said, "Night's chilly up here. Fireplace works great if you need it." The room was warm, simple, and perfect. 2 beds again, soft lamps, a stone fireplace with a small pile of logs stacked beside it. I lit it while she slipped into the bathroom, and when she came out in a worn hoodie and leggings, her face looked less guarded. A delivery guy showed up with dinner, some local place with decent pasta and garlic bread that tasted way better than it should have. He smiled at the setup, at the firelight, and said, "Romantic getaway, huh?" I just gave a half laugh. We didn't correct him. Didn't play the bit either. It didn't feel like that kind of moment. Later, she found a deck of cards in the drawer. Go fish. Something almost ridiculous about that being the option, but we leaned into it. Sat at the foot of one bed, dealing cards like we were 2 kids trying to pass time in a rainy cabin. She cheated. Not aggressively, just enough to keep it interesting. Made a face when I caught her, claimed she was testing my attention span. I told her it was terrible, always had been. We both laughed more than the game probably deserved. "You're kind," she said at one point, not looking up. "You've always been kind. Even as a teenager you had that stillness. I don't think I ever realized how rare that is." I looked at her, and she wasn't just talking to me as Zach's friend anymore. There was something new in her voice, like she was letting herself feel something without asking permission. "You make me feel like I still matter," she added. I didn't rush to respond. Just let the words sit there between us, next to the soft shuffle of cards and the pop of the fire. Eventually, the game faded into nothing. We sat by the window for a while, standing side by side, watching the trees disappear into the night. The woods were dark and clean, untouched by city noise or porch light memories. She turned toward me slowly. No big gesture. No dramatic music swell. Just a quiet shift in weight, the kind you make when you're not trying to impress, only connect. Our eyes met. Hers held mine longer than they ever had. I felt her breathe before anything else, warm, close, steady. Then it happened. Not fireworks. Not a cinematic, breath-stealing kiss. Just something simple and human. Her lips against mine, soft and careful, like she was asking a question, not giving an answer. And I kissed her back. Not because I thought I should. Not because I didn't know better. But because I wanted to meet her where she was. Right there in that exact moment. When we pulled apart, she didn't say anything. Neither did I. We didn't need to. That night, we shared a bed, not out of want or heat or loneliness masquerading as something else. But out of comfort. Out of the need to be near someone who saw you, not for what you'd been, but for how you were surviving now. We lay there with the fire still flickering low, her head on my chest, my hand resting on hers. No expectations. No moves. Just warmth. Human warmth. Grief exhaling into something gentler. Morning came slow, like it knew better than to wake us too fast. The air was cool and crisp, slipping in through a cracked window, mixing with the faint smell of leftover fireplace smoke and coffee grounds. I didn't move right away. Neither did she. Her breath was soft, rhythmic against my chest, like she'd finally reached some level of rest her body hadn't allowed in weeks. When she did stir, it was gradual. A stretch, a quiet yawn, and then a glance up at me with eyes that looked clearer than before. "Coffee?" I asked, my voice low so it didn't spook the moment. She nodded, smiling without saying anything. There was a little porch attached to the room, a couple of chairs, weathered wood railing, and nothing but trees stretching out around us like we were the only people who existed that morning. We took our cups out there, wrapped in blankets, not saying much at first. The quiet wasn't awkward anymore. It felt earned. She broke the silence eventually. "Do you regret last night?" I looked over, caught her expression before she could hide it. There was no shame in her voice, just honesty, maybe a little fear of being the only one who didn't. "No," I said. "Do you?" She shook her head. "Not at all. I just didn't think I'd feel okay." We stayed on that porch for a long time. The birds were louder than usual, the breeze soft through the trees. There was no clock ticking behind us, no schedule demanding we put real clothes on or return calls. It was a bubble, and we both knew it wouldn't last. But it was ours, and we weren't ready to break it. "Let's stay," she said. "One more day." That was all I needed. We didn't do much. Didn't go chasing views or searching for perfect experiences. We just let the day unfold. Around noon, we took a detour to a small waterfall we passed on the drive-in. Nothing grand, just a short walk down a trail where the water spilled over mossy rocks into a shallow pool. She waded in first, shoes off, jeans rolled up. The water was cold, made her yelp and laugh like a kid. I followed, less graceful, but just as unbothered. She splashed me once, light and playful, then laughed at my reaction. "I feel 25 again," she said, standing on a sun-warmed rock. "Or at least not 45. That's the goal." I smiled. We sat there a while, letting the sun dry our clothes and the water leave our skin tingling. There was a lightness in her, like something had unclenched. She leaned against me at one point, head on my shoulder, and whispered, "I wish I could stay here for a month." I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. We both knew we couldn't, but we could pretend for a little while longer. Dinner was back in the room. Pasta again, this time eaten in bed with the TV on, but we weren't watching. There were small touches, hands brushing, a head resting against a shoulder, a look that lingered. The kind of closeness you don't have to earn, just choose. Later, when the lights were low and the fireplace was lit again, she turned toward me and said, "This isn't a forever thing, is it?" "No," I said honestly. "But that doesn't make it less real." She nodded, eyes soft. That's why it matters, doesn't it? Because we both know it has edges. We didn't fill the silence after that. We let the truth hang gently between us, no pressure, no illusion. Night 2 was deeper. Not just physically, though the closeness was there. It was the way we moved around each other, unafraid now. She pulled me in, not because she needed rescue, but because she wanted to feel alive again. I responded, not out of confusion or pity, but from a place of knowing exactly what we were giving each other. It was tender. Not reckless. Fully aware of what it cost to let your guard down, even for a moment. Afterwards, we lay quiet, her fingertips tracing the outline of my arm, my eyes focused on the shifting light of the fire. We didn't pretend this was love. It wasn't fantasy. It was something else, maybe rarer. Something chosen, even if only for now. Packing wasn't fast. We didn't say it, but we both knew we were stretching time, trying not to break whatever spell we built in that room with the pine walls and fireplace glow. Her movements were slow but certain, folding clothes, brushing hair, double-checking drawers, not because she might have forgotten something, but because leaving felt like a second kind of grief. I folded the quilt we hadn't used, placed it back over the foot of the bed like it was something sacred. She watched me from the mirror, a faint smile in her reflection. At the front desk, the same clerk from check-in gave a look that said she remembered us. But she didn't say a word, just handed over the receipt with a knowing smile, like she'd seen people walk in and out of that lodge with heavier hearts and lighter shoulders before. We walked out with no bags between us, just the real things we carried, what was said, what was held, what was let go. The car ride was mostly quiet. Not the tight, awkward kind, but something more like sacred silence. Like we were both holding a bubble in our hands and didn't want to speak too loudly in case it burst. Somewhere outside Columbus, she reached over and placed her hand on mine for a few minutes. Not to start something. Just to say, "Still here." I didn't move. Just let it be. Her neighborhood looked the same as when we left, but something in her shifted the way it felt. When we pulled into her driveway, she looked at the porch like it had aged decades in our absence. "I feel like I borrowed someone else's life for a weekend," she said, almost to herself. We sat there in the parked car for a moment. Then she opened the door, stepped out, and looked at the house with new eyes. Like she was measuring whether she still fit inside it. I followed her up the steps. She unlocked the door slowly, pushed it open, and we walked in together. Inside, it was all exactly as we'd left it. Same framed photos on the entry table, same shoes by the door. But it felt paused. Like a version of her had been frozen in time here, waiting to be reactivated. She walked around quietly, touching touch points, her fingers grazing the edge of the couch, straightening a picture frame slightly tilted. When she reached the kitchen, she stopped and leaned against the counter. I stayed by the doorway. "This place isn't broken," she said. "It just doesn't know who lives in it anymore." I didn't try to solve it. Just waited. She turned to face me, arms crossed loosely. "You helped me feel alive again, Tony. That wasn't nothing." "I know," I said. "It wasn't from either." She stepped closer. "But I need to stand on my own now. I have to figure out who I am in this house. In this life. Alone." I nodded. "I get it. I really do." There wasn't a speech. No bargaining. No attempt to stretch something good into something it couldn't be. She hugged me, longer than polite, firmer than casual. Her hand ran down my back once, then pulled away. She kissed me gently on the cheek, a final kind of softness. "I don't regret any of it," she said. "Neither do I." We stood there a moment longer, both blinking more than usual, like our eyes were trying not to give us away. Then I walked to the door, opened it, stepped out into the afternoon light. She didn't follow. And that was okay. A week passed, and life didn't slow down to mark it. I was back at work, polishing cars, buffing out scratches, cleaning cup holders filled with the crumbs of people's lives. Nothing had changed, not on the outside. The shop still smelled like wax and engine heat. My radio still cycled through the same playlists. But something in me felt shifted, like a door I hadn't known was locked had quietly opened. Zach texted me on a Thursday. Simple. Thanks for checking on her. She seems steadier. I don't know what you said or did, but thanks, man. I stared at the screen for a while before typing. She just needed to be heard. Then I locked my phone and didn't think about it again. There was no need to explain. No summary to give. The truth of what happened didn't fit in a thread of messages. It was too real for that. The letter came 2 days later. Plain envelope. My name written in familiar cursive. No return address. I opened it carefully, half expecting it to say something final, something sharp or apologetic. But it wasn't like that. Inside was a single sheet of notepaper, folded twice. Tony, I wasn't going to write this, but then I remembered how you made